Hello, 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 everybody tuning in. Welcome back to our EBONI Live on our beloved Wednesdays, our little hump day treats. I'm your host, Charvelle. This is Conversations with Charvelle. Today is kind of like a family reunion for me. I have two good friends from my time at Emerson, so I'm excited to get to chat with some good friends of mine and also just talk about the political climate right now. So these two folks I have coming in have done a lot for people of color within their own industries a lot. We'll get into the nitty gritty of it all, but I'll introduce them all with their official titles. So first we have Chelsey Cartwright, one of my sisters, the Northeast Regional Political Director for Joe Biden for President 2020. And then we'll have Donovan Birch, CEO, founder of the Birch Group, and State Committeeman for the Massachusetts Democratic Party in Conversations with Charvelle. Let's bring them in. All right, here we go. Welcome, Chelsey. Donovan, welcome, welcome. How are you guys feeling?
Feeling good.
I'm good. Happy to be here.
Awesome.
So good to see you ladies again.
Yes, it's so good to see you guys and to have this platform to bring us together, you know, across the country. We got Chelsey, she's in Houston. We got Donovan in Massachusetts. So, you know, and I'm in LA. So it's so cool that we could come together during this time, despite all of the craziness. So thank you so much for carving some time in your schedules to chat with me. I'm so excited to have you guys here. EBONI Alumni Association says welcome. Thanks, guys, for the official welcome. So let's start from the beginning. Like I like to say, we start with our times at Emerson. So Chelsey, I'll start with you. Tell us your year of graduation, what you studied at Emerson, and how that kind of launched you into the position you're at now.
Yeah, sure. So graduated Emerson in 2013. Kind of came untraditionally to politics, studied journalism, broadcast journalism at Emerson. So, you know, I know we have good, fond memories of the legendary Carol Simpson.
Carol Simpson!
A woman of history in her own right.
Yes.
So, yeah, no, I like cut my teeth, you know, doing journalism and fell in love with the art of storytelling. And then, you know, wanted to flip the script a little bit and get into politics. They say it's a contact sport, but I just think that it's a real way to like connect with people and to advocate for the things we care about and we believe in. So, you know, started in politics after an internship with Governor Patrick's office, our former governor in Massachusetts, first Black governor of Massachusetts. And so that was, you know, that was the first of many adventures in this business, but grateful to Governor Patrick for taking a shot on me. And, you know, our Congresswoman now, Ayanna Pressley, was in her Boston City Council office for a number of years. And Senator Warren, you know, so really have learned so much from being on the presidential trail this year, and excited about winning big in November. So
yeah, we just saw Kamala Harris. Okay, let's
got
get
a vice president. You know, we got a vice president, so we got a running mate. But I'm claiming vice president already because
you know, for sure,
history. Yeah,
get into existence. That's right. Thank you so much. All right, Donovan, your year of graduation. Now I know your story a bit, so I know that politics has been in your heart for a minute. So why don't you share with us your journey as well?
Yes, hey everyone, Donovan here, graduated Emerson in 2014. I'm a polycom major. Well, I graduated as a polycom major, sorry. So, you know, I was in the School of Communications. You know, I never got the chance to meet Carol Simpson, but I had a lot of great adventures with Dr. Payne. So lots of stories about that. And to be honest, like I got my start in politics really young. I got my start at 13, you know, so I went to Emerson, but I'm born and raised Boston. So I worked on my first campaign at 13 for State Senator Sonia Chang Diaz in 2006. We lost. Came back in 2008 when I was 15, and we won. And from there, I've worked on subsequent campaigns for both Senator Sonia Chang Diaz, Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley, a few city council candidates here. In addition to that, I've done some advocacy work within the nonprofit sector here. So working with organizations like Mass Vote on voting rights and youth civic education. And in addition to that, I have my own business where we do consult for politics, doing digital work there. And, you know, I would say that like me coming to Emerson was actually a culmination of that early political work, right? Of me being involved early, but also having this love and this passion for communications and, you know, not necessarily wanting to be a poli-sci major, but wanted something that combined both of them. And that's why I ended up at Emerson. And while at Emerson, I ended up getting jobs at the State House and doing other stuff. And like, you know, so it's a long history, and I don't want to go into it and bore everyone with the details. But, you know, right now I am a state committeeman for the Massachusetts Democratic Party, you know, which is an elected position. And in addition to that, you know, just really working on, you know, ensuring that the Massachusetts Democratic Party is open, transparent, holding electeds accountable, and really is, you know, accountable to the grassroots and to the values that we all hold dear. So.
Thank you. Now, Donovan, you were also in the middle of the campaign when the coronavirus hit. Can you tell us a little bit about running your own campaign? Because you're so young, and I feel like everybody's like, "What?"
Yeah.
I mean, when I hear you talk about it, it just seems so natural for you. But talk about a little bit the campaign process and how coronavirus affected that for you.
Yeah, so the campaign process is actually a lot longer and harder than folks actually imagine. I know that oftentimes when people interact with campaigns, it seems as almost if the campaign popped up overnight, or that like this person is sort of taking advantage of this moment. But campaigns are planned well in advance, with at least a year. And you know, that's how far in advance I planned my campaign and was working. I'm talking about January 2019. I'm hiring and vetting consultants and being in the community and getting support and, you know, trying to fundraise early, so that, you know, when 2020 hit and it was time to run, you can hit the ground running. Unfortunately, I did have to suspend my campaign because of COVID. You know, as a business owner, you know, I eat what I kill. And when you're campaigning, you know, you have to work unless you are unless you're affluent, right? Because you can't pay yourself from your campaign funds. You can't pay your family. You can't reimburse yourself for rent. And so I was in this predicament where COVID came and a lot of work had either stopped or was on pause. And I saw like sort of like my money kind of like, you know, I was in a little financial crunch, like many businesses right now, right? And so shout out to any business owners right there who are feeling a financial pinch, because I know that as a business owner, it hurts your pride a bit. But guess what? COVID was not in the cards. Not that we foresaw, it wasn't our fault. And so in order, you know, to ensure that I still had a roof over my head and could, you know, pay my bills, you know, I had to make the unfortunate decision to suspend the campaign just so that I could work on getting my life back on track. I'm not gonna lie, the first 3 months of COVID were very, very difficult for me. And, you know, thank God, you know, that things have kind of turned around, but, you know, at the time that was the best decision I could make.
Yeah, it's tough to hear that. Once, you know, you came to LA and we saw you had that little fundraising event for you. So I've seen the passion you had for it and the excitement. And but you know, I know that this isn't the end for you. I know that, you know, I'm sure you'll pick things back up when everything gets back to normal, and you know, your time to shine will come, and we'll be here. Ebony will be here for you.
No, thank you so much. And I appreciate all the love and support. Like, thank you, Charvelle. Thank you, Stephen Fair. Thank you, Nancy. You all really came together to help and galvanize folks. So I'm super appreciative for that. And, you know, that's what politics is, right? Like, politics is galvanizing your network to support you so that your network helps persuade other people to support you, right? And so I loved it because you all knew where I was coming from authentically, and you saw that and you felt that and you supported. So I appreciate that. But now we got to make sure we have Chelsey's back and we get the Helen Harris ticket in the office, and make sure that we you know, do what we got to do. there's a lot of work to be done over the next few weeks. So
yeah. So Chelsey, you're kind of in a different predicament, because I remember when we talked kind of at the start of the virus, you were like, Elizabeth Warren essentially had already been cut out of the race, and so it was like, what do I do? And then so you've been on the Biden campaign for now, what, 3 weeks?
Yeah, it's been like 3 weeks. Feels more like 3 months, but
I can't imagine. Yeah. So how were you able to, I guess, kind of get into the Biden campaign and transition after Warren was cut out?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, politics is certainly built on the strength of relationships. So I've been so blessed to have true mentors and colleagues in this business. And I had people looking out for me. I appreciate, the primary fight that the senator put up, and certainly was proud as ever, but it was soul crushing. I was like, I'd been on the team for such a while, and I'd been on a re-election campaign, and you really build a family with folks, So, traveling the country with folks and really building a team and a family, it means something. And COVID came, and the campaign actually was suspended like a week before, everything shut down in Massachusetts and things. So I always seem to think like, what would happen if she was still in the race and we were dealing with COVID. But to say that I was blessed is the understatement. I was able to rely upon mentors like our campaign manager, Roger Lau, who looked out for me, and Congresswoman Presley has always been a sister and a friend in this business, and she looked out for me, and and I couldn't pass the opportunity by to join the Biden team. I've been working as the Southern political director on Warren Democrats, which is Elizabeth's re-election committee, and a real way to support down ballot candidates ahead of November. And then I got the call from Team Biden, and they were like, "Hey, we want to chat," and I was like, do I want to jump on another campaign? What does this even mean? But, you got to seize the moment. And I think we've arrived at a critical moment in terms of this election cycle. I mean, people say it all the time. It's the biggest election of our lifetime. But that really is nothing to take lightly. I mean, this is really, we're voting for our lives here. So that's how I came to come on the, come to be on the Biden team. And it's been a great journey thus far. We got like 83 days to get this thing done. So
wow,
it's about keeping it moving.
Yeah, when you say 83, it sounds so close. It sounds so immediate. So it's definitely important. Let's talk a little bit about Black Lives Matter. As Donovan, you've said Black Lives Matter Part 2, like the comeback. Chelsey, I know you had talked about how this has affected Biden's campaign, but can you talk a little bit more about how that shifted things for him?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I just think holistically, we think about race and how we're able to reckon and lack thereof reckoning in this country. And I think, George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, all these folks whose lives we have to lift up, we have to continue to fight for justice. Their lives are not in vain. We have to continue to march forward and make them proud. But I think in terms of the larger conversation on criminal justice reform and really sitting with the role of police and what they mean and how community policing needs to be turned on its head, and the way we think about how communities of color, particularly Black communities, and their relationships with the police. I mean, history tells the story, right? I mean, we can look back on the LA riots, or we can look back even in Boston, when there was school busing in Boston, and thinking through just kind of the touch and go relationship. No one's really had to deal with it. So I think, this awakening of Black Lives Matter, it's really given us a time to reckon as a people, as Black folks, but also our white co-conspirators, right? Our white allies. They're understanding what good trouble is all about, right? Like it's not just showing up. I need you to speak out. I need you to name it. I need you to be willing to put yourself on the line and not just use me as a way to explain away your privilege or the way you weaponize your power in the world. I think folks could learn a great deal of thinking through the lens of these are people's lives. Like, this is nothing new for Black folks, So
Right.
I think it was Brittany Packnett who mentioned earlier on, when white America gets a cold, Black America gets the flu. And thinking through that and like how we have to call it out and name it and work to be anti-racist day in and day out. It's important.
Yeah. Yeah. Donovan, what are your thoughts on this second coming of Black Lives Matter? I know you were super active during the first.
Yeah, no, this is this is something that I get very emotional about and I get very passionate about. Back in 2014 when, Michael Brown was shot on August 9th, I was really impacted by that, right? Like as a Black man, also knowing that like just a year prior that George Zimmerman got off, and I kind of got fed up. And so I got fed up and I dropped everything that I was doing. And I actually went to Ferguson, Missouri and helped organize for 2 weeks and was helping doing community work and supporting the organizers that were leading and getting to know the nonprofits in the area that were really doing the work to support the community and also help change direction there. So this is something that's always been with me and I could never actually look away from. And I say part two because it's really unfortunate, but I remember when all this was happening in 2014 and things were happening in 2015, it didn't feel like we had folks' attention and folks didn't seem to really care. And so I say part two because now all of a sudden people that I know for a fact I tried to get on this bandwagon 6 years ago, but who side-eyed me or who didn't care. Now folks care and now they're all activists and doing all these things. And, I'm not saying that to be negative. I'm saying like, look, I'm happy you got to where you're going, but it's unfortunate if you were, with us back in 2014, we could have been sustained. So it's kind of like we had a reawakening for some folks. And unfortunately, there's a lot of white folks that kind of just now jumping in, right? And I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that we're all in this pandemic and at home and all that anyone was watching for a while was in the news. If for someone like myself who was there in 2014 and has been working on these issues since then, I saw this coming because no matter what happens is that just because there isn't mass riots in a city this month or this year or whatever, doesn't mean that these unjust killings of Black people are not happening, right? And we know this because every year there's multiple hashtags. So when I'm seeing these hashtags, I'm triggered and I'm upset because I'm like, where's all the unrest? Like this is still happening. But I'm happy now that people are finally, once again, in the streets and doing what they need to do because, we have a lot of work to do to dismantle the legacy of white supremacy and slavery and European colonization and imperialism in this country. And I'm very intentional about saying that because I feel like here in the North, people think that they're devoid of this history because the North won the war and Abraham Lincoln freed the slaves. But in the North, instead of having Robert E. Lee statues, we have statues of Christopher Columbus. And as a man of Caribbean descent, I can tell you all the bad things that Christopher Columbus has done, and all the ways in which, white folks have come to me and said, oh, but it was this great era of exploration and we have European languages now. Not even thinking about the fact that the 3 people on this call right now, none of us know our native languages because of this history, right? Sure. So, and if you're like myself, you from the Caribbean, you come from indigenous roots, like we don't even know our indigenous roots and histories and even have a recollection of those languages. So, we have a lot of work to do and this is going to continue. And I even think that even in this moment with, a very historic ticket of both Biden and Harris, that, the work will still have to be done, right? Because we will still have to work with them, hold them accountable like we would any administration and make sure that we are pushing for the policies that really will liberate Black people. And I think it's very, I like to be very clear that the liberation of Black people is directly linked to everybody else's liberation. So if Black people are liberated, everyone is liberated because every system of oppression is predicated on keeping Black people down, right? And so that's where I'm at with that.
For sure. Let's see here. We have a comment. Oh, Kevin Lyle's tuning in. Hey, yo. Hey, Kevin. Thanks for watching. And welcome. Yes. Okay. So that being said, from a strategic, point of view, Donovan, what do you think are steps that we all should be taking to really, like you were saying, if this had been the amount of people on board in 2014, we could have really made progress and made a movement that was long lasting. What can we do now? Hashtags aside, what else can people do to really further, this movement?
No, thank you for that. So I think there's a number of things. One, we definitely have to continue like marching and protesting because we always need to be applying that pressure from outside. I also think that we need to be supporting and uplifting community organizations that have been embedded and have been doing this work for years and are directly servicing people and are directly also have the ear of our elected officials who are also pushing them. Because while our elected officials do listen to their constituents and are cognizant of protests, their daily lives when we are not in an uproar is really, largely with, nonprofits, lobbyists and businesses and other certain interests. So making sure that you are plugging in and pushing those community organizations is important and being active in those community organizations. I would also say that as people, we need to be as active throughout the democratic process as possible. So, I think oftentimes when folks think about democracy and think of politics, we often think of elected officials and their staff. But truth be told, like the political world is an entire and giant apparatus, right? So for example, you can be an elected official, you can be their staffer, but you could work for, you can work for the party. You could be elected to a position within the party. You can organize a ward committee. You can organize a committee in your locality about a special interest. So for example, you can get together like, I live in Boston, so Black women in Dorchester for Democrats or whatever it is, you can do those sorts of things because we need to fill in the whole bench of the system, right? So for example, something that most people probably don't know is that as a Democratic, as a state committeeman for the Democratic Party of Massachusetts, I actually vote and help decide who the 11 electors to the Electoral College from Massachusetts are, right? And so many folks don't know that, right? So many people think the Electoral College is completely out of their reach and this nebulous thing, but it's like, no, here I am, a 27-year-old Black man from the hood who just last Saturday decided who the 11 electors would be, right? And like, I know who they are, I know them personally, and I can connect everyone with them, right? And so those are the sorts of things and opportunities that exist, especially because when you are sort of filling in the entire system, you do have, a lot more power and a lot more sway because, the party and the elected officials are looking at town committees, ward committees in cities, specific interest groups, whether it's Progressive Massachusetts or or Black organizing groups or, the Black Economic Council of Massachusetts. They're looking at all these groups for ideas, whether it's policy, the lived experiences of people that are happening. And so there's so many opportunities for folks to actually have power in the system without actually being an elected official and to learn so much more and have sway.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for that. Susan Banks says, Republicans haven't held Trump accountable for anything, but you can bet that will change completely when it's Biden-Harris in the White House. They will suddenly be all over it. Well, we'll see. Hopefully. Kevin says, I hope, Susan. So yeah. Chelsey, now, so we've talked a little bit about Black Lives Matter and you guys' journey. Can you talk a little bit about being specifically a woman of color within politics? How has that journey been for you?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I'm wearing this shirt today, to join that Shirley, Daisy, Harry.
Yes. Love it. Yes.
We've got to walk in the legacy, and I try to walk in the legacy of Barbara Jordan, of Shirley Chisholm, of Fannie Lou Hamer, of Ella Baker, Ida B. Wells. All these women who paid and were intentional about the collective power of Black women. Particularly in the Democratic Party, Black women are the heart and soul of the party, right? So yesterday was a day of joy and celebration for me to see Senator Harris step into her power as a Black woman and bring us all along because she knows that she didn't arrive alone. And I think the best part about being a sister in politics is that I have sisters that I can call in the middle of the night and cry about being on a campaign or vent about, the white power structure, democratic politics, or whatever it may be. There is a village of women who provide and nurture each other. And just so grateful for Congresswoman Presley. I'll never forget, when the the Edward M. Kennedy Institute was opened shortly after the death of the senator, she held space in that chamber to host 100 Black women from across Massachusetts.
Mm-hmm.
That was the first time that many Black women had ever stood in their power and been bold and stood up for their communities in that way. I mean, it wasn't the actual floor of the United States Senate because, no one's allowed except for members and their staff. But that representation truly matters. Representing our communities and being the standard bearers of our families and our communities. I mean, think about all the ways that Black women show up in community and build each other up, So I've been grateful to have those role models. And for me, it means everything because if you can't be it, you can't see it. I think, representation truly matters. I've had the real honor for Congresswoman Presley, and she, made history twice. And so, but she always told me that it's not just about making history. It's not just about being the first or the only.
Mm-hmm.
It's about how can I open the door and make sure another sister gets through. How can we not just have a seat at the table, but how can we build the table? It's about equity. It's about opportunity. How are we expanding that to not just a few of us, but to all of us, and to make sure that that is truly the notion of standing with Black women. It was a campaign put up by Planned Parenthood not too long ago, and also Higher Heights for America has Black women lead, and those are just like mantras that we can really feel proud of and stand in our power. To fight for what we believe in and bring our communities along every step of the way.
Nice. Okua says, Black folk need to coalesce around Kamala. They're coming after her. Too Black, too strong, not Black enough, too radical, too law and order. True. And then Kevin steps in with the best thing Black folks could do is to increase its own voter participation far beyond that of other constituencies. Legislators only listen to actual voters that keep them in power, not those who speak loudly without the big stick of large and active voter groups. What do you guys think? Agree?
I agree. And in terms of power, we got to knock down the house. It's going to take us coming together. I mean, we as Black people are the most powerful voting bloc in this country, and it's about time that folks realize Black voters matter. And with all due respect, you cannot win a path to the White House without our vote, and it's something that you can't take for granted. It's something that you have and that their vote should be protected and insured come November.
Yeah.
No, definitely. I agree 100%. I mean, when you look at a lot of voter suppression efforts, a lot of those efforts are centered in areas where there are large groups of Black people, particularly in the South and areas of the Midwest. I always share the stat that like 40% of the Black population of America lives in the South, right? So the politics of the South should look very different than it actually currently does.
Yeah.
But because of certain, because of gerrymandering and other voter suppression efforts, that's not reflected. And what ends up happening when you suppress the vote, you make people not want to vote and not want to register. And you create a culture and a history of that for generations within a family. And so, we have to break through that. I think a lot of that is incumbent on, our elected leaders to actually, shore that up and stop saying, because we know that some states are going to marginalize folks, it's time for a national standard of elections, right? Mm-hmm. And just not allowing some states to have open and fair elections and others not to, just because, they're trying to keep and maintain power, right? Like it's a severe and grave injustice. And so I agree 100%, but I don't want to just put the onus on Black people, right? Like, like oppression is real. Systematic oppression is alive and well, right? And we knew that when the Supreme Court gutted the Voting Rights Act in the late years of the Obama administration.
Yeah, and we've already seen the voter suppression kind of start with the slow down of the USPS. So it's very important that people register to vote. If you're not registered already, you can go to vote.gov, which we put up here, and get those ballots. If you're doing a mail-in ballot, get them in early because it's it's going to be tough. I feel like they were already starting all of their efforts to slow down and to suppress the votes.
No, they definitely are. And I will say this, like in many areas, you will still, like in all areas, because they're going to do this regardless, you can actually still physically go to a voting poll. And so if you don't trust the vote by mail, because, you know, in my social media feed and when I'm talking to folks in my community, a lot of people of color, because they're hearing this stuff about USPS, you know, they don't feel that their ballot is safe, right?
Yeah. Right.
And so they're trying to decide, do they go in person, do they not vote at all? And, you know, I know we are in the midst of this pandemic, but to be honest, like we do live in a democracy and the democracy has to continue. And in addition to that, there are grave consequences this year. And I don't say that lightly, just knowing what I know in the background. And I'm sure Chelsey knows some stuff too. Like we need folks, you know, we need folks to actually come out and vote. And I will say that, like, I would ask that, you know, if folks, you know, are scared to come out, like find a way to socially distant, do what you need to do, but definitely go to those polls. Like it's incredibly important. It's a sacrifice that folks should make because this is, you know, this is going to impact everyone. So.
Definitely. Kevin bringing some stats. 60% Black voter participation sent Hillary home. 65% Obama to the House.
Yeah.
What would 80 or 85% do? Definitely. And Chelsey, as somebody who's working on a campaign, what are efforts that, you know, are strategic efforts that campaigns make to kind of get Black voters and to get the turnout, you know, to increase those numbers?
Absolutely. Well, you know, certainly not leaving any stone unturned when it comes to early voting, right? So all of our states have plans for like a really dynamic program for early vote, for vote by mail. And on top of that, to really do the relational organizing that goes within, you know, organizing in communities of color, particularly our community, is making folks feel safe that their vote is going to count. Like Donovan said, we have to ensure that folks know their vote is protected. And we know statistics show that, you know, Black folks, it's cultural for us. Voting is cultural. Like Donovan said, you know, people paid in blood for us to be able to do that. So really being intentional about the ways in which we meet people in community. And I think, you know, this election cycle is completely turned on its head. I mean, we can't do anything in person, right? You can't do phone banks in person. You can't do, you know, you can't go to a campaign office and you can't shake somebody's hand, but we can be ever intentional about the ways we meet people virtually and kind of expand the umbrella of the folks that we're pulling in on the campaign. So, you know, whether it's celebrating Black Women's Equal Pay Day, which is tomorrow, you know, it takes a Black woman a full year to make the dollar amount of a same white man in his base salary. And so calling out those inequities and speaking to them, I know that the Vice President and Senator Harris are going to speak that into existence. They're going to be committed to building up the needs of our community. And certainly we got to go a step further, right? Like the baseline is good, but I'm all about like, let's keep the pressure on and let Black folks show unequivocally our strength in numbers. You know, the Black Voters Matter Tour, an incredible organization out of Atlanta, Georgia, and Montgomery, Alabama. They're going across the South. They do a bus tour. They crisscross the South. They go to battleground states. They're going to Pennsylvania. They're going to Michigan. They're going to Wisconsin. And they're making sure that, you know, nothing happens like it happened in Michigan, where in 2016, you know, 500,000 Black folks just didn't vote, you know, and we know that voter apathy is real, but you have to give something for our community to sink their teeth into. We need a candidate that's going to stand up for us. We need a candidate that's going to put the needs of our community first. So I just think that there's a lot of ways that, you know, outside groups and coalition groups are building together with the Biden campaign to put those needs first and to not let off the gas and knowing that it's going to take our collective power to really get things done in a big way. for the vice president and Senator Harris.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Marlene says, if I have to stand in line all day, I'm voting. Amen.
Yes, Marlene. Yes.
Get those votes in, folks. Okay, so as we said, the countdown is 83 days. What can people do from home via social media? We're all quarantined. Well, most of us are still quarantined at this point, or staying home to stay safe. What can we do from home? Donovan, what are some things that you've been doing that you would like to encourage other people to do to get vote, kind of make these movements happen, kick things into gear?
No, definitely. Thank you for that. So some things that I've been doing is one, as a millennial, obviously we're always on social media. So I share as much information as I can across social media, just so folks know what's happening and so I can answer questions and all those other things. The other thing I will say is that, we are in the 21st century and technology is pervasive in all campaigns. So even though we cannot physically door knock or go canvassing, you could do a phone bank from home. The campaign can set you up with an account so you can log in online and make calls from the safety of your own home. So you can call your neighbors or you can call your hometown and things like that. You can also potentially do some lit drops. So, so you don't actually go to people's door and actually talk to them, but you just leave it on their porch just to get literature to them. Or something that, I was just asked to do today was, hosting a virtual watch party for the debates that are coming up, or for the, nominee Biden and nominee Harris's, speeches and things like that. So all the ways that we've sort of been staying close and connected to our friends and family and other loved ones, or even doing video appointments with your therapist. Campaigns have all those technological innovations too, so that we can actually keep our democracy going, because our democracy is predicated on people not only voting but actually getting out there to get the vote out, and things like that. I know that there's a lot of stories and myths out there about you not counting and not having an impact, but at the end of the day, it's the people who are knocking on doors, making phone calls, and who are going to the polls, who are deciding what the options are and who's going to lead. We do have a say, so those are things you can do.
Nice. Yeah. And I just added into the chat for those who are watching, if you want any links. Chelsey was able to send over quite a few volunteer opportunities for Team Biden and Harris if you're interested. So it kind of came out a little muddled, but if you can do a bit, and let's see if I can show it. Volunteer opportunities, it kind of looks like this listing. Some more volunteer opportunities, watch parties, things like that. So definitely check the comments because they're in there. Let's see here. And then we have Susan Banks said, I love that so many of our organizations have vowed to protect Kamala from all the incoming. They're not going to let the racist crap from Trump and his cult go after her without clapping back. Her sorority and Charlemagne the God have rallied to defend her, to name a few. Yep. And Daily Kos has a letter writing campaign that they are looking for people to participate. So another opportunity for people to get active and get out there and
Oh no, that's definitely true. I forgot the name of the organization, but there's a nonprofit that organizes folks all around the country to actually send letters to folks in swing states, urging them to go vote. So, they do the work of identifying the voters who are infrequent voters or who haven't voted but are all registered. And, they create the labels for you and will even have a, evergreen letter that they share. So all you're going to do is print the labels and print the letters and get together with, your pod, because I know that we're only supposed to be, staying with the folks in our home. So with your home pod, and you can send letters to folks in these swing states urging them to vote. That's a way that you can have an impact beyond your city, town, or state. I remember when I was in LA for the fundraiser, I was talking so much about the importance of supporting democratic efforts all across the country. Even though we're 50 states and I think 7 to 8 territories, we are one people, we are one nation, and just because I'm in Massachusetts and you're in California doesn't mean that we don't have an impact on one another.
Daily Cross. Okay, cool. So for those who are interested, you can Google that.
Next week is the Democratic National Convention. Super excited that we now are moving into convention mode. So shameless plug, if anybody wants to be the person to host a cool watch party on behalf of Team Biden and Harris, it'd be an incredible time. Got a great dynamic speaking program each night. Just to name a few, on night one, former First Lady, but forever FLOTUS, obviously, Michelle Obama will be the big draw that night. On night two, it'll be former President Barack Obama. And then on night three, the Vice President, along with Senator Harris, are going to accept their nominations to be our Democratic nominees. So exciting times. I mean, it's virtual, it's different. But it gives us a new way to connect with folks and hopefully, continue to build and add folks to Democrats who are staying engaged.
Mm-hmm. Love that. Great. Let's see here. Well, looks like the comments have slowed down. So I wanted to kind of go back a little bit because I know I talked to Chelsey about being a woman of color. Donovan, I also want to talk about ageism and also being a gay man within politics. Can you talk a little bit about your experiences in those realms?
No, thank you. So in a nutshell, it's hard and it's very hard. It's difficult because being very young, you will find that because, Gen X, millennials, and Gen Z don't have an affiliation for organized groups the way that older generations do, you oftentimes walk into organizations and you are often the youngest person in the room. For example, I am the youngest. I'm the youngest person involved in my Democratic Ward Committee by about 5 years. I actually think maybe possibly more, but I only think 5 years just because someone is a slightly older millennial. I'm not gonna lie, on the Democratic State Committee for Massachusetts, there's 400 of us, and it skews a lot older. It skews heavily 50 plus. And so we are often in these conversations about different lived realities, experiences, and expectations. For example, I know a lot of folks that I was elected with and that I work with, we're really pushing for like accountability and consequences for elected officials when they don't stick to the party platform or when they do something undemocratic, right? Which rubs a lot of older folks the wrong way because they're like, well, we've been working with them for so long and we need friends and you want allies. And, while young folks are like, you're not really our friend if there's no consequences for when you do me dirty, right? Like the same way that, if you were my friend and you stole from me, there's consequences for that. It should be the same way when you're my elected official, when you're good on gay issues and you're good on immigration, but you're horrible when it comes to police accountability and you vote down a bill that you wrote, right? So it's like those sorts of things. And being queer can be difficult. I find that it's oftentimes the most difficult when trying to organize in politics and deal with like other men of color. It's very hard because when you often go to these events about Black men or Latino men or all these sorts of things, it comes from one sort of set perspective, and it's a very heteronormative perspective and experience. And oftentimes they do not include trans men and they do not include other queer men, whether they're bi, gay, or whatever. So that's very difficult. So you oftentimes feel that you're the lone one talking about this issue and trying to expand folks' idea of what it means to be a man. And oftentimes these things can work against you because some folks are like, oh, he seems to only want to work or talk about this, right? But it's like, of course I'm going to bring this up because you all already got talking about police brutality and the need for Black businesses and how to support Black fathers and economic empowerment, but you're not talking about the fact that like 1 in 2 Black gay men are expected to contract HIV in our lifetime, or the fact that like as Black gay men, we are directly responsible for the fact that like Black women make up 57% of the seroconversions in terms of women for HIV, right? Like we're not talking about these things, and folks think about it, it's like, oh, you're just making it a gay thing. I'm like, no, I'm actually talking about the intersection of public health. I'm talking about about our socialization of men, ending toxic masculinity, which actually leads to misogyny, which is why many of you treat Black women horribly and don't support them on their issues, while they ride hard for y'all when the police are going after you, right? So it's very difficult. I often feel like I live in this like political unicorn land, because like you have to deal with being young, and you get it from everybody for being young, and then you have to deal with being queer, and you're getting it from like your side of the sex spectrum, and it can be hard, and it can be isolating, and you have to find ways to keep yourself up, you have to find ways to keep going, and you have to like seek allies and like-minded folks, and that's incredibly important. And then I will say, just to add, that like the race does come into play as well. Because I'm queer, which will get you a lot of play and understanding in white circles, but conversely, they don't want to talk about the fact that it's Black queer people that are the most likely to be homeless and commit suicide, right? Like these are real things, and so it's just hard. But like I said, like you got to keep doing the work. You have to find allies. I know last year, me and Chelsey sat in a car outside my brother's house, like just trying to keep ourselves together with everything that's happened. We text each other here and there, like, good job, sister, like, keep going, keep up the work. Like those things are important. And, I have, a handful of other folks here in Massachusetts who like, who I share some of the crazy things that are happening, and they're like, yo, just keep going. Like you're doing the work, and you need that encouragement, because I feel that when you are doing good work, anytime one person says something bad or you get some opposition or something, it hurts 100 times more than people could ever understand. Because whether you realize it or not at the time, like you have the moral high ground and you're doing the right thing. And no one likes to be shut down or came at for doing the right thing. And it's weird because we live in this country where everyone says if you do the right thing, everyone is going to be okay and everyone's going to love you and support you, only to become an adult and realize like that's not the case at all.
Right.
So
for sure. And I mean, that's something I've always admired in you, Donovan, too, is your perseverance and your thick skin. So I'm glad that you have your network to support you and keep you uplifted, because I know you're going to do amazing things.
Thank you.
Kula actually brought up an excellent point too. Poll workers are needed because older workers are, in fear of COVID right now. So if anybody is looking for another way to volunteer, definitely check in with your local polls and volunteer day of if you feel safe. I'm sure they'll have all of the regulations set up. And
what people don't know is that you get paid for being a poll worker. It's not a volunteer position. The locality pays you. They pay you for a full days of work. So, if you end it like, if you want to be a poll worker, I suggest do it. If you're ever worried about being a poll worker because you don't want to take off a day from work, you're going to get paid for that day regardless, right? So I would suggest that, you do it. It's really key. And if you want to be one of those folks who get some early insight into politics and know before everyone else who actually won an election, work the polls, because guess what? The people who work the polls don't also help you vote, but they count the votes. Yeah. So, so it's a great opportunity and a great inside sort of position.
Nice. Nancy also tuning in. She said, tune in and turn it up, folks. Host a watch party, volunteer to support our candidates. Please and thank you. And we also have love to have this inside preview. Thanks, Chelsey. So definitely some great words. Well, guys, thank you so much. I want to talk a little bit about the future. Obviously, we don't know what's going to happen in November, but I guess why don't each of you, Chelsey, let's start with you. Tell me what, I mean, we kind of know what the ideal situation is for, you think, the rest of the year.
So the ideal scenario is that we astronomically, beyond a shadow of a doubt, with as much gusto, momentum, and like overall just, show up, turn out, Joe Biden wins big by big margins. Because I don't know about y'all, but I want Trump to like be kicking and screaming when they evict him from 1300 Pennsylvania Avenue, now named Black Lives Matter Plaza. Like, I want him gone. So I just want people to know that there's power in their vote. I want a Black woman to be on the Supreme Court. The vice president, did right by selecting a Black woman to be his running mate. I want him to go further. Supreme Court. I want a great cabinet. I want Raphael Warnock, Jamie Harrison, Mike Espy, and Charles Booker. He didn't win his primary, but I want those 3 Black men to be elected to the United States Senate without question. They would be the first 3 Black men since Reconstruction to be elected as sitting senators from the South. So I want people to also, shameless plug for their campaigns as well. To celebrate Cori Bush, the first Black woman who was an activist in Ferguson to now be our Congresswoman. I want her to win. I mean, she's already won, but I mean, across the country, I want Democrats and progressives of color to win big up and down the ballot. We are our brothers and our sisters keepers, and I want us to keep pouring into ourselves. I want policy to be codified. I want to end qualified immunity. I could go on and on, but I want to see some tangible changes, not just out the ballot box, but in an administration and in governments and communities across this country.
No, I agree. I would echo, I definitely want to see a Biden-Harris victory, and I want a large margin. And I know I live in a democratically safe state, but my hope is that all the swing states, go this way because, folks realize that what we have had over the last 4 years just isn't it. Right. And I want to see that translate not into just a presidential VP victory, but I want to see that into a victory where Nancy Pelosi has a bigger majority in the House. And I want to see us take back the Senate. The Senate is where a lot of good bills have been going to die, and where a lot of bidding for, our President Baltimore to doing all his dirty deeds. And that's super important to me because that, determines who actually gets confirmed for certain cabinet picks or the Supreme Court and all that. And I know that the bigger the Democratic majority, the more progressive Democrats are going to be in the policies that they actually support and pass, and the more progressive people that they are going to allow to hold positions because they see that the mandate is with them. And I definitely want to see that because I think we know that one of the biggest things, and this is the personal opinion, that COVID has really brought to light is that we need a new form of health care in America, because I think the biggest thing that no one is talking about with COVID-19 is that all the 30 million people who are unemployed, all 30 million of them have lost health insurance. So in a matter of 2 months, 30 million people lost their jobs, and that's 30 million people lost their health insurance. Your health insurance should not be tied to your employer. Healthcare is a human right. It should be safe and affordable, and everyone should have access to it. And I think that I want to see that mandate so we can get some real concrete healthcare reform. Because when I talk to the people where I live, when I talk to other people across the country, everyone is concerned about this, both because of cost, but because they know that, one thing at their job goes wrong, and either them or 4 other people, if they're a parent, right? The 2 parents and, the average 2 kids, that's 4 people who don't have health insurance. Yeah. And in the richest country in the world and in human history, healthcare should not be up for debate. And we kind of need to end that debate as well as codifying our democracy as being anti-racist. And my last thing is we need to take at least one of Trump's Supreme Court picks off the Supreme Court, because that was just completely unprecedented what Mitch McConnell did by not confirming Merrick Garland. And there has to be consequences for that.
Yeah. Yeah, and kind of to reiterate that, Kevin says that is an era that most of our voters don't really understand is how important the control is, and he's talking control of the Senate. It's really imperative. And then Marlene came in with, we are so proud of you both. The future is bright with your political advocacy. So
Thank
thanks,
you.
Marlene. And yeah, agreed. Thank you guys so much. I'm going to throw up, if anybody is interested in following Chelsey or Donovan on social media, these are their Twitter handles. That's where they're the most active. So definitely give them a follow, engage with them, retweet any resources that they may be tweeting out. It's definitely a good time to repost, retweet as much as possible and share the information with everybody. So yeah, definitely do that. And again, I'm going to throw this up. Register to vote, folks. I think that's one of the biggest takeaways from today is our vote counts, and we need to just really show up and show out this November and make sure our voices are heard so that we can make some changes, make some progress in this country. So yeah, thank you guys so much for chatting with me. I wish you the best of luck. Chelsey, stay strong, my sister.
Yeah, stay strong, Chelsey. You got this. You got this.
83 days, you got it. But I know it's so exciting.
83 days. Yeah, absolutely. I'm sorry if I'm a little like glazed over at this point. It's been a long day, but it's you know, I'm so excited about what we can do. I'm just overcome. I mean, we really have a shot at getting this done and getting Trump out, and that is so important.
Yeah, definitely. Susan, last minute comments here. She says a lot of those unqualified judges, Moscow Mitch, push through, need to be impeached. You both keep going. Your passion is much needed. Definitely agree.
Thank
Kevin
you,
said, thank you, young folks. Ebony in here. Thank you so much for hiring. So as you guys can see, your voices have been heard and appreciated. Okua, go and be the change. So true, so true.
Nice. No, thank you so much, definitely, for having us, Charvelle. And I'm always excited to always be on any sort of speaking engagement or interaction with Chelsey, who's my fellow sister in politics.
Yes.
And just to see all of you and to reconnect with the Ebony community. It's, you know, it's been wonderful, and to see how everyone is growing and changing and making moves, it's awesome.
Yeah, definitely. And don't be strangers. Again, you know, the Ebony page is a great resource. So if you have anything you would like to share, definitely post it to the page so we can blast it out and just get as many people seeing it as possible, because we need a hustle. We need all hands on deck. And I think we're ready for that. But thank you guys so much. Go get some rest. I know it's much later on your coast. And I know you guys are working day in and day out to make some change. So thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. Bye now.
Big thanks to you for hosting. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah. All right, guys, what a great discussion. I told you those guys were a huge part of my Emerson time, my Ebony family, essentially. So great to chit chat with them. And thank you guys so much for watching. Again, if you only caught the tail end, this video will be available for a watch immediately on Facebook. And then after 24 hours, you can catch it on YouTube as well at our Ebony Alumni Association page. So definitely check that out. If you're interested in chatting with me or doing some sort of presentation on Ebony Live, definitely reach out to us at ebonyalumnila@gmail.com and pitch yourself. Let us know what you want to chat about. Do you have a new business venture? Are you a performer and you'd like to do like a little one-person show or something like that? Definitely let us know. We're always looking. We want to keep these up because this has been a great way for us to connect as an organization, as alumni of Emerson College. And we want to keep it up because it's been so fun. And additionally, make sure you tune in next week because we'll have another Ebony Live. I'm going to be discussing Roger Fountain and Rebecca Sagar's new business venture. They started this new branding company called The Scene. It's a Black-owned business that focuses on branding for other Black businesses. So it's definitely going to be an exciting conversation and a little bit different. So we'll switch the vibe, and I will see you then. Thanks for watching, guys.